Xiao Zhan raised an eyebrow and looked at Chu Lin, asking softly, does your Chu family also know the human emperor punch? Chu Lin, always strong yet sometimes weak, answered, the human emperor punch was passed down from our Chu family's ancestors. All the direct descendants of the Chu family can learn and practice it. Xiao Zhan was surprised and let out a soft "oh." Curiosity quickly bubbled up inside him as he thought, could it be that my human emperor punch comes from the Chu family's ancestors? While Xiao Zhan was lost in thought, Chu Lin seized the opportunity and lunged at him to land a surprise attack. But demonic Chu immediately activated the ethereal steps of yin and yang, moving as fast as lightning to appear right beside Chu Lin. With this swift dodge, Xiao Zhan made Chu Lin's punch miss completely, landing in the empty air. Without missing a beat, demonic Chu raised his left hand like a hammer and brought it crashing down onto the back of Chu Lin's head. The blow made Chu Lin's head go numb, his eyes uncontrollably trembling. At the same time, a spray of bright red blood shot from his mouth. Chu Lin's body wobbled, and he fell face first to the ground. Right under Xiao Zhan's feet, demonic Chu quickly pressed one foot onto Chu Lin's back, pinning him to the ground so he couldn't move. At this moment, Enki also stepped out from the crowd. Her voice, filled with rage, rang out as she shouted, Chu Lin, Chu family, you killed my parents just to get the Jai Shui treasure. But heaven sees all, and now the Holy Sun will bring justice. The end of your Chu family is here. And Qi spoke as she lifted her right foot, placing the heel of her high-heeled shoe directly onto Chu Lin's forehead. Seeing this, Chu Lin's pupils violently contracted. His face turned pale, cold sweat poured down his face, and his lips trembled uncontrollably. You. But before Chu Lin could finish his sentence, a scream full of agony was heard, followed by the sharp sound of Enki's heel plunging straight into his forehead. Blood spurted out in torrents, staining the ground red and sending Chu Lin on his final journey to the afterlife. From the upper floor, Chu Tian had been watching all of this unfold. Seeing his father killed by Enki, he finally couldn't hold back anymore. He charged out and attacked Xiao Zhan. With a fierce look on his face, Chu Tian angrily shouted at Xiao Zhan, Xiao Zhan, how dare you come to my Chu family and cause trouble? At the same time, Chu Tian's second brother, Chu Xiang, also rushed out and grabbed Enki, locking her tightly in his arms. And Qi immediately turned to Xiao Zhan for help, crying out, Holy Sun, save me! Caught off guard by this sudden turn of events, Xiao Zhan stood frozen in shock. Seeing his second brother successfully capture Enki, Chu Tian's eyes blazed with fury. He glared at Enki and shouted, Witch, you dared to kill my father. Today, I will drag you down to the underworld to reunite with your parents. Xiao Zhan immediately turned around and coldly said to Chu Xiang, let Enki go. When Chu Xiang saw Xiao Zhan looking at him, his gaze was filled with killing intent. He suddenly felt a sense of fear in his heart. Instinctively, he took a step back, but Chu Xiang still held onto Enki's neck tightly. As soon as Xiao Zhan made a move, he would strike and take her life. Seeing this, demonic Chu's eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light, and he coldly said, You want to die? Without another word, Xiao Zhan immediately raised two fingers, forming a hand gesture and preparing to use his absolute kill move, the heaven-killing sword intent to take Chu Xiang's life. Just then, Jin Chengxiu rushed over in panic. Holy Sun, Your Highness, the Chu family is off limits. The ancestor of the Chu family is one of the founders of the Tai Su Holy Ground. The Chu family has a deep relationship with Tai Su Holy Ground. Please, Your Highness, think this through. Demonic Chu remained silent. He turned his head slowly and gave Jin Chengxiu a cold, piercing look, his dark eyes filled with an unreadable depth. Upon meeting Xiao Zhan's gaze, the hairs on the back of Jin Chengxiu's neck stood on end, as if he were being watched by a ferocious beast from the Red Plains. Jin Chengxiu could sense a murderous aura radiating from Xiao Zhan. He knew that if he said one more word, Xiao Zhan would certainly kill him. Xiao Zhan would never show him even the slightest mercy just because they came from the same holy ground. Jin Chengxiu's face turned pale and sweat began to bead on his forehead. His mouth opened slightly, but he dared not speak another word. Inside, Jin Chengxiu thought, all these years I've been able to dominate Lansing City thanks to the backing of the Chu family. If the Chu family falls, I won't have the good days I've been living anymore. I have to stop the Tai Su Holy Sun no matter what. Suddenly, Lu Yi appeared out of thin air. She easily grabbed both brothers of the Chu family, Chu Tian and Chu Xiang, and held them captive. Her voice was cold as she spoke, Don't move. If you try anything, I'll snap your necks. At that moment, a voice echoed from the void. Holy Sun, can you spare the Chu family's lives? As the voice faded, three figures stepped out from the nothingness. They were Titan Sing Peak Master, Tian Qiong Peak Master Liu Xiu, along with Yun He Feng and Shai Meng Yi. Demonic Chu slowly raised his head to look at the Titan Sing Peak Master and calmly said, "Today, they all have to die. No one can stop it." Feeling the determination in Xiao Zhan to completely wipe out the Chu family, Titan Sing Peak Master's face showed a slight tremble. He took a deep breath and asked, "Is there no room for negotiation?" Xiao Zhan replied with another question. "Did the Holy Lord send you here?" Titan Sing Peak Master nodded slightly. Seeing this, Xiao Zhan didn't say anything further. Instead, he shifted his gaze toward his darling master, Shai Meng Yi, who was standing behind a Titan Sing Peak Master, arms crossed over her chest. The moment Xiao Zhan saw his darling master, the villainous disciple Chu couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. He thought to himself, "Master's here too. It feels like every day I don't see her, she just gets more stunning, more captivating. Her beauty is even more mesmerizing now." With that thought in mind, Xiao Zhan's face lit up as he beamed at his darling Shai Meng Yi, his voice full of warmth as he spoke from the heart. "Master, it's been so long. Disciple has missed you so much. Have you missed me too?" Shai Meng Yi on the outside remained calm and indifferent, her expression unchanged. She gave Xiao Zhan a quick glance and silently thought to herself, "This villainous disciple really can't stop talking." Seeing that his master wasn't responding, Xiao Zhan couldn't stand it. He quickly moved to her side and switched into full romance mode. "Master, it's been too long. I've missed you so much." Shai Meng Yi's face was expressionless as she shot Xiao Zhan a quick, reproachful glare, then quietly muttered, "All you do is cause trouble for Master." After saying this, Shai Meng Yi turned to face the crowd of onlookers, including the Chu family, and spoke loudly. "Chu Tian Yu, Chu Tian Xiang, and the entire Chu family, you've used every trick to get your hands on the treasure. If we let you off the hook today, how could Tai Su Holy Ground ever earn the trust of the world again? What's happened today is entirely your own doing, and the Holy Ground won't take responsibility for it." Her words struck a nerve with the Chu family, who were all filled with frustration, but they had no choice but to remain silent. They didn't utter a word of protest. On the other hand, Xiao Zhan was in a much better mood. He felt extremely pleased and thought to himself, "Master really does have my back." At that moment, Liu Xiu, the master of Tian Qiong Peak, also spoke up. "I'll handle the rest with Titan Sing Peak Master. Xiao Zhan, you should go back to the Holy Ground with your master. The Holy Lord is looking for you." Xiao Zhan nodded eagerly, grinning as he responded, "All right, Master and I will head back first." Demonic Chu smiled widely on the outside, but inside he was bubbling with excitement, thinking to himself, "Finally heading back to the Holy Ground. I'll have Master teach me a few more new moves later, haha." After saying their goodbyes, Xiao Zhan and Shai Meng Yi walked side by side and left. Jin Chengxiu watched Xiao Zhan's retreating figure, letting out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, the Holy Sun didn't go after him, and the Chu family had been saved. He could still continue running his business peacefully in Lansing City. Just as Jin Chengxiu was starting to relax, Xiao Zhan suddenly stopped and casually turned to him, saying, "Oh, by the way, if you decide to take care of things behind the scenes, you might as well investigate the accounts of Jubao Tower 2. Jin Chengxiu stood frozen, his eyes wide, mouth open in shock, unable to say a word. After landing that final blow, Xiao Zhan continued walking away with Shai Meng Yi. Seizing the opportunity when no one was looking, the villainous disciple Chu sneaked his arms around and grabbed two soft, round peaches from his darling master. Shai Meng Yi's face immediately turned red. She glared at Xiao Zhan in anger, then coldly scolded, "Villainous disciple, where do you think you're putting your hands?" Villainous disciple Chu smirked, his lips curling into a smile that seemed to dare her to strike him. With an innocent look, he said, "Oops, my hand just slipped. Please forgive me, Master. You wouldn't know, but after not being at the Holy Ground for so long, I dream of you every night." When Shai Meng Yi heard this, he felt quite pleased inside, but on the outside, he still acted cold and aloof, saying, "Villainous disciple, you talk too much. Get your hand off me." Xiao Zhan kept his defiant posture, with his hand still where it was, and said, "I can't do that. I'm still waiting to train with Master." A little later, Xiao Zhan and Shai Meng Yi had returned to Tai Su Peak, to the Tai Su Holy Ground. They stepped out of the void, and Xiao Zhan did it as if it were second nature. He casually slapped Shai Meng Yi on the back and said, "Master, I'll go report this to Sister Hua first, then I'll come find you later." Shai Meng Yi's voice carried a hint of playful annoyance as he snapped, "Villainous disciple, who needs you to find me? Your Sister Hua is waiting for you." Xiao Zhan quickly made his way to the meeting spot where Tai Su Zi and Huo Lu Fi, also known as Sister Hua, were waiting. As soon as Xiao Zhan saw the back of Sister Hua, he smiled and called out, "Sister, did you want to see me?" Tai Su immediately turned around, giving a small nod before smiling at Xiao Zhan. "Xiao Zhan, I heard you have some issues with the Chu family." Xiao Zhan scratched his head, flashing a bright smile as he replied, "Yeah, that's right. The Chu family, thinking they have connections with the Tai Su Holy Ground, has been causing trouble in Lansing City. They've been killing innocent people, and I just couldn't stand by. I wanted to teach them a lesson. I know the Chu family's ties with Tai Su Holy Ground, so I figured it's something I should handle for you, sister." Hua Lufei smiled softly and raised a hand to cover her mouth as she spoke. "Sister doesn't blame you. You did the right thing. For the past few years, the Chu family has been using their connection to the Tai Su Holy Ground to dominate in Lansing City. We've had to hold back on punishing them because of face, but this time, it's a warning to the Chu family." Xiao Zhan stepped closer to Sister Hua, gently taking her hands in his. With a smile, he said, "So, does that mean I've done a good deed for the Tai Su Holy Ground? If that's the case, how do you plan to reward me?" As he spoke, Xiao Zhan moved in closer from behind and wrapped his arms around Hua Lu Feng's waist. Hearing the hidden meaning in his words and actions, Hua Lu Fei tilted her head slightly, a little embarrassed. She shyly replied, "The Tai Chi Ancient Star is about to open, so you should go and get ready. Once you're all set, I'll come to check on you and bring a gift." Her voice was hesitant, and Xiao Zhan could hear the uncertainty in her tone. The gleam in Xiao Zhan's eyes brightened, and he watched Hua Lu Fei leave with a smile. His heart felt light as he responded, "All right, Sister Hua, we've made a promise then." After saying goodbye to Tai Su Xiao Zhan returned to Yun He Feng once again. He didn't wander around or visit the darling master. Xiao Zhan gave some instructions, then went straight into his room to begin his secluded cultivation. In Tian Qiong City, Xiao Zhan had gained quite a lot of rewards. First, there were 50 attribute points to improve his sacred body's potential, and then there were 2 billion divine origin stones. However, Xiao Zhan didn't rush to exchange them for breakthrough points. Instead, he first used the 50 attribute points to enhance his primordial sacred constitution. At that moment, a sudden notification appeared from the system. "Master, the system has detected that the ethereal steps of yin and yang have reached the ultimate state. It can be upgraded. Would you like to break through?" Xiao Zhan casually replied, "Breakthrough." A moment later, another notification appeared. "Congratulations, Master. The breakthrough was successful. Ethereal steps of yin and yang has now reached the highest level." Demonic Chu's eyes gleamed with a strange light as he thought to himself, "The highest level? It feels like I've shattered some kind of restriction, though I can't quite grasp it." His perception had shifted entirely. Before him, the space seemed to reveal traces and patterns, almost transforming into a flat surface like a sheet of paper. With just a swipe of his hand, he could instantly travel from one spot to another. It's quite similar to the space of Taoist principles that a great saint would comprehend where they tear apart the void in order to transcend. However, this method is different. Instead of tearing apart the void, it's about merging into the void itself. The faster you do it, the more effective it becomes. Not only that, Xiao Zhan could vaguely sense a place that was incredibly far away. There, he felt a long river, where the laws of time flowed both horizontally and vertically, extremely terrifying. It's important to note that only cultivators who have broken through to the level of supreme divinity and sense the existence of the endless river of time. Seeing this, Xiao Zhan was filled with astonishment. He thought to himself, "Is this the endless river of time? That makes sense. The ethereal steps of yin and yang are known as a time-space technique, unmatched in speed. Now that my cultivation has reached this level, it's not surprising that I can sense the endless river of time. My ethereal steps of yin and yang have reached the peak of their evolution. It seems like there's a new change. I should give it a try." With that thought, Xiao Zhan immediately stood up and took a step forward. He raised his arm, exerted a gentle force, and tore a section of void apart. Xiao Zhan's figure then disappeared from the spot. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Zhan appeared in the Yun He Feng courtyard. Sister Lu, who had been sitting and enjoying some delicious grilled skewers, immediately sensed Xiao Zhan's presence. She quickly turned her head, her eyes filled with astonishment. "What kind of secret technique have you mastered now? How can you stir the very fabric of space and time?" she asked in disbelief. Off in the distance, Qin Yi's face was filled with joy. As soon as she saw Xiao Zhan, she excitedly ran over to him. "Uncle Xiao Zhan, uncle, you're back," she called out happily. Xiao Zhan gave a subtle smile, his lips curling up in an enigmatic way. Once again, he activated the ethereal steps of yin and yang, using himself as the center. Within a radius of several thousand meters, the hawks flying in the sky and the falling leaves seemed to freeze in place. Even Qin Yi, running toward him with joy, appeared as though a pause button had been hit. Everything around him became still. Seeing this, Xiao Zhan couldn't help but feel a surge of surprise and inner joy. So it's all frozen. Can I actually control time now? He thought. The only person unaffected by the flow of time was Lu Qingyu's sister Lu. She wore a beautiful, form-fitting purple dress, which hugged her body perfectly as she slowly walked toward Xiao Zhan. Sister Lu smiled at him, her expression one of both amazement and curiosity. Xiao Zhan, this is the power of time, something only a Saint King can control. What realm are you at now? Xiao Zhan smiled and replied, Sister Lu, you're amazing. You can block my interference. Right now, my cultivation is still just at the godly power realm, Great Peak. Sister Lu flashed a charming smile. She rested her finger on her chin and looked Xiao Zhan up and down. Sister, I really want to cut you in half and carefully study what secret you're hiding. Hearing this, Xiao Zhan scratched his head and forced a bright smile. Sister, there's no need for that, is there? Suddenly, Xiao Zhan's expression became serious. He looked at Lu Qingyu and asked, Sister Lu, do you think my divine power could affect a Saint King? Lu Qingyu rubbed her chin and thought seriously for a moment. Affect a great saint? This is the first time I've seen a situation like yours. Based on the intensity of your divine power and the way the space-time Tao rule is influencing things, I think it could definitely affect a great saint. However, to know for sure, I'd still recommend you go see your master and test it out. Xiao Zhan nodded slightly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Finishing his words, Xiao Zhan closed his eyes. He raised two fingertips and made a gesture to activate the missing technique, dissolving the ethereal steps of yin and yang. The icy space around them gradually returned to normal. At that moment, Qin Yi finally ran up to Xiao Zhan. Because her cultivation level was too low, she hadn't noticed anything that had just happened. This was the terrifying part of time manipulation techniques. Without enough strength, when faced with such a power, even death would come without understanding why. Xiao Zhan reached out and gently patted Qin Yi's head. He sensed that her inner energy was growing, expanding. Xiao Zhan smiled in approval and said, Not bad. Looks like you haven't been slacking off lately. Qin Yi looked up at Xiao Zhan with her bright, sparkling eyes and replied, Uncle, I won't be lazy. Lately, Fai Yan has been guiding me to my training, so I've been making a lot of progress. Xiao Zhan nodded in satisfaction. Good girl. You've been working hard. Uncle has to go back to seclusion cultivation now. As he returned to his secret training room, Xiao Zhan thought to himself, Next, I need to break through my current realm and push the 9 origins to the low saint level. With that in mind, he immediately sat down in meditation and began his training. He recalled the terrifying scene when he broke through the 5 elements realm. Worried that the 9 origins breakthrough might destroy Yun He Feng, Xiao Zhan immediately released his spiritual sense, directing it towards Sister Lu, who was sitting nearby grilling meat. Sister Lu, I'm about to break through. There might be a strange phenomenon in the world soon. Sister Lu's beautiful eyes flickered slightly. She nodded gently, a confident smile appearing on her face as she replied, Don't worry about the breakthrough. With me here, Yun He Feng will be just fine. Xiao Zhan took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began his breakthrough to the 9 origins level of low saint. He started absorbing the spiritual energy from the heavens and earth at an intense rate. And at this moment, the system also sent a notification. System check. The host is about to break through to the 9 origins low saint level, triggering a world-changing phenomenon. The 9 origins transformation will complete in 20 breaths. Please prepare accordingly. Suddenly, a massive change occurred in the sky above Tai Su Holy Ground. The world turned dark with neither the sun nor the moon shining. The void itself trembled, and the sky seemed as though it might collapse, shattering the laws of nature. The tide of spiritual energy wildly gathered right above Yun He Feng. Witnessing this, the cultivators within the holy ground looked up in shock and amazement, their faces filled with disbelief. They couldn't help but exclaim, Could it be that the holy sun is breaking through? This scene is even more dramatic than the 5 elemental tide from last time. I'm so curious, what realm is the holy sun at now? Sensing a shift of the heavens and earth, Shai Mang Yi immediately climbed to the roof of the Yun He Feng main hall. She looked up and saw the sky filled with swirling wind and thunder, the scene resembling an approaching apocalypse, causing everyone to feel a deep sense of fear. 2 contrasting forces, black and white, appeared. They twisted around each other, drawing closer and pushing each other away in a constant struggle. This was the way of yin and yang. Then the concepts of life and death, time and space emerged one after another. Shai Mang Yi couldn't help but be shaken, left speechless. This is the 9 origins convergence. What kind of cultivation path is the villainous disciple practicing? How could he have reached such a level? Sister Lu had also been observing closely. She carefully sensed the changes in the sky, her expression growing more and more astonished. The 5 elements, the 9 origins convergence. Could it be that little Xiao Zhan really has the potential to become an emperor? Time passed like this: 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. On the 6th day, the 9 origins phenomenon finally faded away. Xiao Zhan had successfully broken through to the Low Saint realm. Xiao Zhan stood up, spread his arms wide, and let out a loud shout. His clothes were torn to shreds as he did so. The system immediately displayed a notification. Congratulations, host, you have successfully broken through to the Low Saint realm with the 9 origins. At Xiao Zhan's cultivation chamber, a thick mist filled the air. Xiao Zhan continued to meditate, his eyes closed as he adjusted his breathing to stabilize himself after the breakthrough in his cultivation. At the same time, he performed a technique to cleanse his body of all impurities. After a while, Xiao Zhan opened his eyes. He turned his head toward the door and noticed Sister Lu standing outside, peeking in. This made demonic Chu jump in surprise. He quickly raised his hand to cover himself, awkwardly shouting, "Sister Lu, can't you stop being so creepy? Don't you see I'm naked? As a Sigma guy myself, I feel like you're being way too pervy." Sister Lu walked up to Xiao Zhan. Her eyes flicked down, and then she smiled playfully. She pouted and calmly replied, "I've seen you before, so why be so embarrassed?" Xiao Zhan hurriedly covered himself with both hands, angrily cursing. "You really don't hold back, do you? You're the one sneaking peeks and being all nosy." As Xiao Zhan cursed, he quickly got dressed. Once his clothes were back on, he calmly turned to Sister Lu and asked, "By the way, how long did my breakthrough take?" Sister Lu, looking a little lazy, answered, "About 6 days in total." Xiao Zhan sounded surprised. Did it really take me that long? At that moment, Xiao Zhan finally looked back at his residence, which seemed to have turned into ruins. He shook his head and walked over to the window, calling out loudly, "Fa Yan, Fa Yan." Upon hearing Xiao Zhan's call, Mo Fa Yan immediately flew over and stood at the door. She lowered her body in a respectful gesture toward Lu Qingyu. Then, she turned to Xiao Zhan, smiling as she said, "Congratulations, Your Highness. Your cultivation has improved again. I've arranged for people to clean up your residence. It will be restored to its original state in less than half a day." As Mo Fa Yan spoke, she gently walked over to Xiao Zhan. He reached out and put his arm around her shoulder, pulling her into his embrace. He nodded slightly, feeling quite pleased. Smiling at her gently, he said, "Very good. You're truly the perfect housekeeper for me." Mo Fa Yan's cheeks immediately turned red. She lightly rested her head on Xiao Zhan's chest, feeling shy, and whispered, "Holy Son, Senior Lu is still here." Lu Qingyu waved his hand, smiling playfully, and said nonchalantly, "Feel free to do as you like. Just treat me like I'm invisible. If you too want to resolve things in front of me, I don't mind." Hearing this, Mo Fa Yan became even more embarrassed. She lowered her head, too shy to look up at Lu Qingyu. "Senior Lu, you're teasing me again." Xiao Zhan tightly wrapped his arms around Mo Fa Yan's waist and reassured her, "Leave this to you. I need to go meet with the master now." Mo Fa Yan gave a soft nod and replied with a quiet Xiao Zhan, appearing calm and composed, took a step forward. As he did, a space filled with a blood-red hue appeared beneath his feet. His body seemed to sink into this strange blood-colored space. Then he merged into the void, disappearing from sight completely. Seeing this, Mo Fa Yan's face was filled with disbelief. "I clearly didn't sense any fluctuations in the void at all. How did His Highness do that?" Sister Lu's eyes sparkled with a glint of admiration, and she smiled lightly. "Ha ha, it's not just you. Even the Holy King would have a hard time sensing his time and space movements unless they were very carefully observing. He's cultivated the ethereal steps of yin and yang to such a level that it's almost impossible to predict. Truly impressive. He's quite a genius." Mo Fa Yan, hearing this, felt a mix of joy and worry. She was happy to see Xiao Zhan's strength growing, but also anxious that she might no longer be able to help him. However, Elder Mo quickly regained her composure and turned to Lu Qingyu, smiling gratefully. "Thank you, Senior Lu, for explaining that to me." Scene change. Yun He Feng at the main hall of the sect leader. A figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the hall, immediately catching the attention of 2 female disciples. As soon as they saw the Holy Son, the 2 quickly bowed to him. "Your Highness, Holy Son, Your Highness?" Xiao Zhan gave a slight nod, smiling at them. His expression softened as he asked, "Is the Peak Master inside?" "Reporting to Your Highness, the Peak Master is just inside, within reach. She instructed that if you arrived before her, you could go straight in and meet her." Xiao Zhan glanced over at the stockings on the slender legs of the 2 disciples. He smiled faintly, feeling a bit amused to himself as he thought, not bad. Both of them are wearing black stockings. Are all the female disciples of Yun He Feng dressing like this now? The 2 female disciples noticed Xiao Zhan's gaze. Their faces turned slightly red, and they quickly lowered their heads, then glanced at Xiao Zhan's back as he walked into the hall. The disciple in the green dress scolded the one on her right. "This is all your fault. You told me to wear this today, and now the Holy Sun saw it." The disciple on the right calmly laughed and said, "Don't worry, your highness won't dislike it. Didn't you see how he smiled earlier?" "Ah, really?" The female disciple in the green dress subtly shifted her gaze, her face showing a hint of curiosity as she asked, "But did you come up with this yourself?" "Hey, one day I happened to see Peep Master wearing something like this. I thought it looked really beautiful, so I decided to recreate it. Putting everything else aside, it just feels so comfortable when you wear it." "Ah, I see. I think this has great potential for business. If not, we could make some and sell them." Hearing this, the female disciple's eyes immediately lit up. "But I've never been involved in business before." "Don't worry, I'll handle the details. You just focus on preparing the materials." Xiao Zhan quickly arrived at the main doors of the Yun He Feng hall. He didn't even bother knocking and simply pushed the door open to enter. Villainous disciple Chu smiled with his eyes narrowed, his face full of joy as he said, "Master, the disciple is here." Did everyone notice? There's always this scene with this couple. Demonic Chu playfully laughed and pouted, then sweetly coaxed his wife. It was simply adorable. At that moment, Darling Master was dressed in a long white gown that clung to her body, holding a tray of plums. Her body was slightly leaned against the throne, revealing her slender, flawless legs, smooth, white, and flawless, embodying the indescribable beauty of heavenly fragrance. Shai Meng Yi put on a cold, aloof expression and looked at Xiao Zhan with a hint of indifference in her eyes. She casually asked, "What's the matter? Why are you looking for me?" The villainous disciple, Chu, smiled and responded nonchalantly, "Master, I came to challenge you to a duel." Upon hearing this, Shai Meng Yi was taken aback. Her gaze shifted briefly to the outside of the hall. A slight flush appeared on her face in an instant. She stood up abruptly, eyes wide, and scolded, "In broad daylight, you villainous disciple, don't go too far." With that, Shai Meng Yi waved her sleeve, unleashing an invisible force that slammed the hall's main door shut with a loud thud. My darling even put up a few layers of barrier and soundproofing on it. Xiao Zhan was startled by the sight and couldn't help but feel a big question mark form in his mind. While confused about what her darling was doing, he saw her slowly walking toward him. The villainous disciple, Chu, felt a flicker of unease, causing him to instinctively step back half a step. Xiao Zhan stuttered, his voice trembling, "Master, Gupu, what are you going to do?" Upon hearing this, Shai Meng Yi's beautiful face showed a brief flash of surprise before it quickly disappeared. She paused for a moment, then fell silent. A look of awkwardness appeared on her face, but she couldn't bring herself to say anything. A moment later, she shot a sideways glance at the villainous disciple, Chu, and slowly walked past him. A helpless expression appeared on her face as she said to him, "I really don't know what to do with you. I'll go get some of the toys you like." Xiao Zhan immediately understood what she meant when he heard that. As for what Shai Meng Yi was going to get, he could roughly guess. Everyone knew what it was, and he couldn't help but be really curious. Quickly, Xiao Zhan raised his hand and called out, "Wait, there's no rush for that." Shai Meng Yi, startled, immediately turned around. A confused and dissatisfied look appeared in her eyes as she looked at Xiao Zhan. "What's going on with you now? Why are you being so fussy?" The villainous disciple, Chu, let out a smile, his voice carrying a hint of mockery. "Master, do you really think I came to see you just to improve my talents?" Shai Meng Yi froze for a moment, her mind blanking. She suddenly looked innocent, a little cute even, as she stared at Xiao Zhan. At that moment, she had no idea what was really going on. After a little while, Shai Meng Yi finally remembered everything and realized that she had misunderstood. Feeling embarrassed by the teasing from the villainous disciple, she couldn't hold back her anger anymore. She pointed her finger straight at Xiao Zhan and yelled, "You get lost." "Who thought that? And what's with that look in your eyes? Do you think I'm some kind of burden? You can go to hell, villainous disciple." As soon as she finished speaking, Shai Meng Yi rushed forward, wanting to give Xiao Zhan a good beating. Suddenly being scolded and then slapped, Xiao Zhan wasn't willing to just accept it. He immediately raised his voice in reply. "You misunderstood everything, and now you're blaming me? Master, don't be so unreasonable." Shai Meng Yi stood her ground, stubborn and unwilling to admit any fault. Even though she had been struck, she refused to acknowledge her mistake. Inside, she felt extremely embarrassed and just wanted to find a hole to hide in. What did I misunderstand? Don't just talk nonsense. Has anyone ever won a fight by arguing like this? Xiao Zhan could only helplessly accept the situation. Fine. Everything you say is right, okay. Shai Meng Yi knew she was wrong, so she just sulked and stayed silent, not saying a word. Seeing his darling angry, Xiao Zhan quickly softened his attitude. He gently wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her close to his side. He smiled at her warmly. My cultivation has improved. I was thinking of sparring with you, Master, to test my strength. Darling Master, you wouldn't refuse me, right? Shai Meng Yi's face showed a slight surprise. She shot a cold, scornful glance at the villainous disciple Chu, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Is this how arrogant you got now, villainous disciple? You dare to challenge me. At this point, Shai Meng Yi fixed her deep, intense gaze on Xiao Zhan. In her heart, she thought, this is the perfect opportunity to teach this villainous disciple a lesson. Who told you to embarrass me earlier? I'll make sure you get what's coming to you. Just wait, old Master Long is going to twist your ear and beat you into the ground soon enough. Thinking this, the darling master couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. However, on the outside, she maintained a cold expression, turning her face away and pretending to be indifferent. She still acted as if she didn't care about Xiao Zhan. So, where are we fighting, she asked. Xiao Zhan immediately pointed a finger into the void and said, We'll duel at Tai Su Holy Ground. It's likely we'll destroy Yun He Feng, so we should enter the void instead. Shai Meng Yi was a bit surprised. She looked Xiao Zhan up and down, evaluating him before asking, Are you sure? With your cultivation, you can actually enter the void. Shai Meng Yi thought to herself that this villainous disciple had probably come here just to entertain himself. From her perspective, anyone who hadn't reached the Great Saint Realm would never be able to enter the void alone. No matter how strong this villainous disciple was, he couldn't escape this basic rule. But then, Shai Meng Yi's phoenix eyes widened in disbelief. She watched as Xiao Zhan casually reached out his hand, tearing open the fabric of space, and then led her into the void, without leaving a single trace of disturbance. Shai Meng Yi stood frozen in place. After a moment, she regained her composure and looked toward the dark, endless void stretching thousands of feet away. Her phoenix eyes were filled with shock and doubt. How did you do that? Shai Meng Yi asked. I can still sense your aura, and it's still at the godly power realm. Have you mastered the Tao of space? Or have you reached the Great Saint Realm already? In her heart, Shai Meng Yi couldn't help but wonder, could the villainous disciple really be at the Great Saint Realm now? That can't be. How am I going to suppress him in the future? Xiao Zhan gave a smug smile. It's nothing extraordinary. I've just gained a deeper understanding of the ethereal steps of yin and yang. Be careful, master. There was a quiet confidence in Xiao Zhan's smile. After speaking, he immediately set up a space-time field, disappearing in the blink of an eye, leaving no trace behind. Shai Meng Yi couldn't sense where Xiao Zhan was anymore. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she realized that once she was enveloped by his space-time domain, it would feel like her entire body was sinking into thick, sticky mud. Though she could still move, it would be much slower, and her actions would be sluggish. Even at her full strength, she would only be able to use about 80% of her power. This realization shocked her as she thought, I can't believe the villainous disciple's abilities are this terrifying. At the very moment Shai Meng Yi was standing frozen in shock, Xiao Zhan suddenly appeared right in front of her. His entire body was ablaze with golden flames, and behind him, a shadowy figure that looked just like Xiao Zhan himself appeared. With a single punch, he unleashed the human emperor punch, its overwhelming force shaking the heavens as it surged toward Shai Meng Yi. Master, don't just stand there. Take my punch, he shouted. Shai Meng Yi was startled, her body stiffening. From the center of her forehead, she immediately released a translucent, ice-cold sword made of crystal clear ice. As the sword caught the wind, it quickly grew larger. The immortal Shai Meng Yi, dressed in a flowing white gown, hovered gracefully in the void. She squinted her eyes and looked towards Xiao Zhan, who was struggling a bit. Shai Meng Yi gave a faint smile and said, Your physical body is incredibly strong. You can even match the great saint weapon of my destiny without suffering any major injuries. Impressive. Xiao Zhan stood at the void, his arm trembling slightly. The skin on his hand had been cut in several places by Shai Meng Yi's sword energy, and drops of golden holy blood occasionally dripped down, floating in the air. Xiao Zhan's face still showed a confident expression. He smirked, quietly smiling to himself as he thought, Master's destiny weapon is also very powerful, capable of cutting through my saintly body. Not bad, not bad. Darling, don't hold back. I want to see just how strong I've become now. The husband and wife pair, master and disciple, charged at each other in the void, engaging in a fierce battle with all sorts of divine abilities. Boom, boom, boom. Xiao Zhan unleashed the 36 forms of true martial arts, his divine techniques, the red thread of destiny, and even used the fighting secret art technique to replicate his darling swordplay. Shai Meng Yi responded with a relentless series of moves, one after another. Both of them poured all their strength into the fight, but Shai Meng Yi still hadn't used her most lethal move, because it was simply too terrifying. She was worried that the villainous disciple wouldn't be able to hold his own and might accidentally end up killing himself due to his own mistake. That being said, from her perspective, Xiao Zhan's current combat strength was nothing short of astonishing. He had only just started his training, yet he was already able to go toe-to-toe with someone as experienced as her, a long-time great saint at the peak of her power. His combat ability was so impressive that it couldn't help but shock anyone who saw it. Meanwhile, in the void, Sister Lu was still watching the battle intently. She couldn't help but voice her admiration. After breaking through, his strength hasn't just increased tenfold. Lu Yi, hearing this, nodded in agreement. His progress has been so fast that it exceeds what most people can imagine. If Shameng Yi doesn't use his most powerful divine techniques, he won't be able to catch him. Sister Lu nodded, clearly approving of this assessment. He's really powerful. Plus, with the false self-secret technique, even if Shameng Yi were to strike with full force, he might defeat him, but he could never take his life. Lu Yi, her face as cold as ice, said, "The situation for little Xiao Zhan is already set. After some more time, I'm afraid no one in the Great Saint realm will be able to challenge him. Don't forget, he still has an innate supreme treasure." Sister Lu nodded softly and agreed with a quiet, "That's good. Once he can dominate in the Divine King realm, we'll have to go back to our own business. Not long now, and he won't need our protection anymore." At the same time, Sister Ho was soaking in the bathtub. She was also very interested in the battle between Xiao Zhan and Shameng Yi. Watching Xiao Zhan hold his own against Shameng Yi in combat, Tai Su couldn't help but feel excited. She felt to herself, once Xiao Zhan matures, Tai Su will definitely reach new heights. After a while, the battle between Xiao Zhan and the beloved master Shameng Yi came to an end. Both of them broke through the void and returned to the main hall of the Yun He Feng Palace. The result wasn't surprising. It was a draw. Of course, if both sides fought with all their strength, the outcome would have been harder to predict. Xiao Zhan looked pleased and clasped his hands towards Shameng Yi, smiling as he said, "Haha, thank you, master, for testing me today. You worked hard." The villainous disciple, Chu, had an excited look on his face. He took both of Shameng Yi's hands and asked, "I wonder how strong I would be if I broke through the 5 elements and 9 origins to the level of a great saint. Could I fight a divine king?" Shameng Yi, seeing the proud expression on Xiao Zhan's face, glared at him. Then she pulled her hand back, a little annoyed, and turned away, saying, "Look at you, acting so arrogant. Today I fought you evenly, but it's only because I wasn't in my best condition." The villainous disciple, Chu, narrowed his eyes and gave a flattering smile. Yes. How could a villainous disciple like me possibly match up to the master? It's because master loves me so much and is afraid of me getting hurt. That's why you went easy on me. Shameng Yi felt even more frustrated hearing Xiao Zhan's sycophantic tone. Angrily, she snapped, "Get lost." Inside, Shameng Yi felt a little lost too. The villainous disciple had grown stronger now. He didn't need her protection anymore. The more she thought about it, the more unsettled she felt. Xiao Zhan ignored her harsh words. He casually wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her closer, wearing his usual shameless grin. "Master, look, it's getting dark, and it's time for the red arts." Shameng Yi, already in a bad mood, grew even angrier seeing that smug face. She quickly used her elbow to push his arm off her waist. "Get away! Did we just fight? It's dark now. You should go rest." Xiao Zhan switched tactics. He leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "Master, I bought a good book outside this time. It has some really interesting hidden knowledge in it. Aren't you curious?" After speaking, Xiao Zhan slapped the peach-shaped Shameng Yi gently with his left hand, making the darling master blush with embarrassment. She shot him a sharp glare. They stood face to face, not hiding anything, and their hands met directly, touching each other. At this moment, Shameng Yi's voice grew heavy, and she stammered, "You naughty, villainous disciple. Well, tell master. What do you mean by this?" The next morning, Xiao Zhan, with a rosy face and a cheerful mood, stepped out of the Yun He Feng's main hall. Xiao Zhan walked leisurely along the mountain path at the peak of Yun He Feng. At this moment, Xiao Zhan took out an old jade slip from his pocket and held it in his hand. After a while, he used his spiritual sense to probe the jade slip. Xiao Zhan thought to himself, "This is the jade slip that Tian Qiong gave me before to protect the 3 holy kings." Back then, Tian Qiong had said, "This Tai Chi ancient star map contains information about the Tao source's location, but the exact place will only be revealed when you arrive at the Tai Chi ancient star. The Tao source is the origin. The beginning of the universe was born from it. After cultivation, practitioners can connect with the grand Tao of heaven and earth, getting closer to the heavenly Tao." A treasure like this for an ordinary cultivator could be considered a rare and precious item, But for me, it's not only useless, it's actually harmful. After all, my cultivation path focuses on unity with the Tao, which is different from the heavenly Tao. To the heavenly Tao, my path is nothing short of a great rebellion against its will. Right now, I have to avoid the heavenly Tao. To put it more clearly, my relationship with the heavenly Tao is like that of ice and snow facing the sun. The closer I get, the faster it melts away. Lu Yi said, breaking through to supreme divinity will surely bring down a terrible calamity. Thinking of this, Xiao Zhan couldn't help but sigh. He gazed up at the sky, his mind heavy with thoughts, and wondered to himself, so how can I avoid it? Maybe if I find a place where the heavenly Tao has no influence, I can break through to supreme divinity there. But I'm still so far from reaching supreme divinity. Worrying about these things now doesn't help. With that, Xiao Zhan slowly made his way down the mountain. As he passed a small square on the slope of Yun He Feng, he saw a crowd of female disciples and elder women. They seemed to be fighting to buy something, and the scene was quite chaotic. I want one. I want one too. Wait, don't shove. They were shouting. This piqued Xiao Zhan's curiosity. He slowly walked over to observe and couldn't help but be surprised. Oh, what are you ladies buying? Wait, aren't these the two disciples I saw at the Master's Gate a couple of days ago? What are these items? As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Zhan froze, astonished. He thought to himself, could it be? At first, the demonic Chu was just something he added to spice up the exchange of techniques with the darling master. But now it had become a trend among the female disciples at Tai Su Holy Ground. Xiao Zhan stood silently on the side watching. Before long, the female disciples noticed him. The lively scene suddenly went quiet. Many of the female cultivators blushed, shyly looking down and quickly hiding the items they had just bought behind them. The two female disciples from Yun He Feng, the Hallmaster's Peak, bowed to Xiao Zhan with embarrassed expressions. Holy Son, Your Highness, you're here. An elder also awkwardly bowed and softly said, Greetings, Holy Son, Your Highness. Xiao Zhan waved his hand and smiled casually, saying, You all carry on. Don't mind me. With that, he turned and left. A smile played on his lips as he thought to himself, I guess I helped start this trend, huh? No, more accurately, it's Master who really kicked this trend off. As Xiao Zhan thought, his mind wandered to the image of the female monks from the Tai Su Holy Ground. He imagined their long, endless legs clad in seductive stockings and couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. A wicked grin spread across his face as he thought, well, it's true. In this world, no female monk is ugly. They have graceful figures, fair skin, and slender legs. If the female monks of the Tai Su Holy Ground all wear stockings, that would be a unique and charming sight. Haha, just thinking about it feels so satisfying. At that moment, the system mischievously chimed in with a message. Kaka, the host, just smiled. This is bad news. Meanwhile, on the Tai Chi ancient star, which was countless miles away from the Tian Qiong Continent, the vast and dimly lit space stretched endlessly in the cosmos. A massive sphere rotated counterclockwise, occasionally emitting flashes of various colored light. As the time law drew closer, the ancient star's time law also erupted with intense energy. On a plane within the Tai Chi ancient star, the ground suddenly caved in, creating numerous large and small pits. Inside the pits was pure darkness, impossible to see the bottom. Suddenly, from one of the pits, a giant eye emerged. In the pupil, a fake flame flickered, occasionally flashing ominously, casting an eerie and unsettling glow. At another pit, a coffin rose into the air. Ancient characters were carved on its surface. Occasionally, eerie sounds came from inside the coffin, like nails scraping against the wood. The noise was bone-chilling. The blood-red eyeball, restless and unsettling, moved toward the coffin. It let out a high-pitched, shrill laugh. Kakaka, Tai Yi, you're awake now. Inside the coffin, a frail, aged voice, weak as if it had just awoken after countless years, responded. Aye. The blood-red eyeball laughed loudly, mocking. Kakaka, Tai Yi, the Tai Chi ancient star is about to open. This time, you won't be able to stop me. I will definitely escape from here. As soon as the eyeball finished speaking, a powerful, authoritative voice echoed from within the coffin. Just a lingering hatred, and you dare to stir trouble? The blood-red eyeball laughed coldly and replied indifferently. Kakaka, Tai Yi, after all these years of fighting, you still can't get rid of me. You're getting old, you're about to die. Why not make things easier for me? Just give up and let me leave. The aged voice inside the coffin let out a cold snort, then fell silent, slipping back into a deep slumber. The blood-red eyeball, still laughing eerily, slowly sank back into the pit and disappeared without a trace. Back on the Tian Qiong Continent, behind the Yun He Feng mountain of the Tai Su Holy Ground, Xiao Zhan had been very busy these past few days. During the day, he consulted with Lu Yi and Sister Lu to improve his divine skills. At night, he would discuss and practice with his master and friends, sometimes staying up until dawn. Occasionally, he would spend time playing with the girls. His life was filled with endless joy and fun. Of course, Xiao Zhan didn't forget to guide Qin He Yi in her training. Time passed quickly, and soon the day of the Tai Chi Ancient Stars opening was approaching. Before setting off, his dear master Shai Meng Yi went to meet the villainous disciple Chu. The two met behind the Yun He Feng mountain. Shai Meng Yi took several specially crafted communication talismans from her storage ring and handed them to Xiao Zhan. She looked toward the villainous disciple Chu and carefully instructed him. The Tai Chi Ancient Star is about to open, and I have to travel there with the great saints. Take these communication talismans with you. Once you reach the Tai Chi Ancient Star, you'll not only have to face the threats from the demonic beasts, but also deal with the native inhabitants there. They're not easy to handle. On top of that, there are strange and dangerous places to be wary of. You may have some strength, but don't be careless. The villainous disciple Chu nodded and also took out a few specially crafted communication talismans, handing them back to her. Xiao Zhan gently wrapped his arm around Shai Meng Yi's waist and looked at her with a warm smile. Don't worry, master. I won't act recklessly. Shai Meng Yi's face flushed with a soft pink. She gently struggled, looking angry as she scolded. Villainous disciple, it's broad daylight. Let go of me right now. The shameless disciple Chu refused to let go. He boldly pulled her into his chest, their faces close, eyes locked on each other. In that moment, the only thing they could see was each other. Xiao Zhan smiled, softly saying, Let your disciple hug you for a moment, master. Shai Meng Yi's cheeks turned slightly pink. She tilted her head, resting it against his chest. Her small hand gripped the hem of his shirt as her voice trembled with worry, her eyes filled with deep concern. Don't die, don't die. Xiao Zhan unexpectedly flicked his finger lightly on her forehead and smiled gently at her. Master, you're really underestimating your disciple. Shai Meng Yi's face turned even redder. She raised her small hand and took out a jade coffin, handing it to Xiao Zhan. Take this. In a critical moment, it might be able to help you. As Xiao Zhan looked at the jade coffin in her hand, he noticed wisps of black smoke rising from it. He could sense a faint, mysterious energy coming from it. Confused, he asked, What is this? Shai Meng Yi glanced briefly at the coffin and spoke softly. Inside, there's a zombie puppet, Great Saint at the middle stage. It can be controlled with spiritual sense. Its defense is extremely high, and at a critical moment, it can block an attack for you. Xiao Zhan shook his head and smiled confidently. My saint body is complete, and with my false self-secret protecting me, this thing won't be very useful. You should keep it for yourself. Shai Meng Yi thought the villainous disciple had a point. She immediately took the coffin back and stored it in her spatial ring. Her eyes were full of reluctance as she looked at Xiao Zhan and said, All right then. When you arrive at Tai Chi Ancient Star, make sure to contact us quickly. It's dangerous to travel alone, so take care. I'll go ahead now. You rest up for the next few days. After sending her darling off to Tai Chi Ancient Star, Xiao Zhan returned to his own cave. As he sensed Xiao Zhan's presence, Lu Yi, who had been sitting by the fire roasting meat, opened her eyes and turned to look at him. She waved her hand and called out, Little boy, come here. Xiao Zhan moved quickly, appearing next to Lu Yi in an instant. He casually reached out, wrapping his arm around her waist and pulling her close to him. He looked at her and smiled, asking, Lu Yi, what's wrong? Lu Yi was already used to Xiao Zhan's actions by now. She calmly slid her hand into her chest and searched for something. It didn't take long before Lu Yi pulled out 2 jade charms, one purple and one blue, and held them out in front of Xiao Zhan. Here, take these, she said. Xiao Zhan took the 2 jade charms, holding them in his hands. His eyes were full of curiosity as he examined them. What exactly were these? He could sense an incredibly strong surge of energy coming from the charms. Luckily, the powerful energy was sealed within the script on them. If it weren't for that, they would have exploded as soon as he tried to activate them. Xiao Zhan wasn't brave enough to handle these dangerous items just yet. Lu Yi, with a serious look in her eyes, turned to Xiao Zhan and explained, I know the rules of the world have changed and the supreme divinity might be suppressed. So before I sealed myself away, I left behind a few tricks. These 2 jade charms, for example, are used to seal 2 of my divine abilities. She paused for a moment and pointed at the purple jade charm in Xiao Zhan's hand. This one contains a divine ability. When activated, it can unleash an attack at the peak of my strength from back in the day. Even a normal supreme divinity would be severely injured by it. If used well, it could even kill them. Hearing this, Xiao Zhan couldn't help but feel stunned and thought to himself, is it really that powerful? Lu Yi continued pointing at the blue jade pendant on Xiao Zhan's left side. This holds a defensive divine technique of mine. Once activated, unless you're at the peak of supreme divinity, no one can break through it. You must remember it only lasts for one moment. Whether you can escape within that time depends entirely on you. Xiao Zhan's eyes immediately lit up. Surprised, he kissed Lu Yi on the cheek. Lu Yi, are you really my Lu Yi? The sudden kiss left Lu Yi frozen. She instinctively touched her cheek and stared blankly at Xiao Zhan, softly mumbling in response. Sister Lu is waiting inside the sea of consciousness. Seeing this, Sister Lu raised her middle finger in frustration and angrily shouted, "You brat." Sister Lu didn't forget to remind Lu Yi that she's still dazed from your kiss. Tell them not to die, all right? After a moment, Lu Yi regained her senses and repeated Sister Lu's words to Xiao Zhan. The woman in purple asked me to tell you, don't die. Xiao Zhan patted his chest and flashed her a confident smile. Don't worry, my luck's bigger than that. After bidding farewell to Lu Qingyu and Lu Yi, Xiao Zhan returned to his room, took out the crystal stone, and headed toward the Tai Chi ancient star. At tens of thousands of meters above the ground, in the middle of a vast lake, a sudden spatial vortex appeared. Xiao Zhan fell out of it. Feeling the warmth of the sunlight and the breeze on his face, Xiao Zhan calmly opened his eyes. His expression was calm as he hovered in the air and descended toward the lake's surface. With his now terrifying physical strength, even if he couldn't fly, it was normal for him to fall from tens of thousands of meters without suffering any harm. As soon as his feet touched the ground, Xiao Zhan immediately surveyed his surroundings. He smiled to himself and thought, this is the Tai Chi ancient star, so vast. Even though I didn't have a clear idea of where I would land, I'd already arrived at one of my intended destinations. Could this be the result of having such great luck? This was a U-shaped lake, clearly located above the King Tong Yuan Pan, the place where the primordial sword embryo existed. But something felt off. This lake was too quiet, too still. There was no wind, no bird songs, no sounds at all. Something dangerous must be hidden here. Thinking this, Xiao Zhan crouched down and threw a powerful punch at the ground. However, the ground was unusually hard. His punch didn't leave a single mark. The space around him remained eerily silent, as if all sound had been completely drained away. Xiao Zhan continued to throw punches straight into the water, but the surface seemed like an invisible wall blocking him. No matter how many times he punched, he couldn't break through, and there wasn't even a ripple in the water. Seeing this strange phenomenon, Xiao Zhan sighed and thought to himself, looks like I'll have to go straight through. After walking for a while, a monster suddenly emerged from beneath the lake's surface. It was massive and bizarre, with dark hands full of sharp claws. Cold, eerie energy surrounded its body. Feeling the chilling aura behind him, Xiao Zhan quickly turned around. He was face to face with the gigantic monster, his sharp teeth bared at him. Without a moment's hesitation, Xiao Zhan immediately threw a punch straight at the monster's throat, sending it flying back. After a moment of assessment, Xiao Zhan furrowed his brow and thought, I can't sense any life in it. Is it some kind of undead? Like a zombie puppet controlled by someone? The fact that it didn't burst from my punch means its body must be incredibly strong. Its power seems close to that of a third-level great saint. Before Xiao Zhan could think further, the zombie puppet shot forward like lightning. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of him. The zombie puppet swung its left hand, claws aiming directly at Xiao Zhan's throat. Xiao Zhan's expression was cold, his entire body radiating a golden light, and his blood seemed to surge with immense power. His hand, like an iron clamp, seized the arm of the zombie puppet. The zombie puppet struggled, but couldn't break free. Its right hand immediately lashed out, aiming for Xiao Zhan's eyes. Xiao Zhan tilted his head to dodge, then used all his strength to twist the zombie puppet's left arm, delivering a powerful blow that sent the puppet crashing into the surface of the lake. Xiao Zhan slowly descended next to the zombie puppet. He saw black, thick blood oozing from its mouth, giving off a disgusting stench. Just as Xiao Zhan was about to dissect the zombie puppet to figure out what it really was, a dangerous presence suddenly appeared behind him. He glanced around quickly. At that moment, more zombie puppets began rising from the water, their numbers growing by the second. Within just a few breaths, the count had already exceeded 20. Facing the growing horde of zombie puppets, Xiao Zhan's eyes twitched. His expression twisted with frustration as he silently cursed, "Damn it, did I just stir up a hornet's nest?" With that thought, Xiao Zhan didn't hesitate for a second. He turned and bolted. Thank goodness I chose to upgrade my ethereal steps of Yin and Yang Ultimate before coming to the Tai Chi Ancient Star. Otherwise, I'd probably be dead by now. This lake indeed had a rule that restricted flight. With his cultivation not high enough, even the ethereal steps of Yin and Yang Ultimate were limited. If not for that, he could have already dashed to the center of the lake in the blink of an eye. Right behind Xiao Zhan, 60 zombie puppets were chasing him. All of them were at the level of great saints. If they surrounded him, There was no doubt that Xiao Zhan would be finished. More than half of him would be dead for sure. Xiao Zhan felt a rush of panic in his chest and cursed under his breath. This dungeon is on a hellish level. No wonder no one's been able to get the primordial sword embryo all these years. Suddenly, a glowing sword-shaped mark appeared on Xiao Zhan's forehead. His pupils shifted slightly as he thought to himself, sword key. With that thought, Xiao Zhan quickly pulled out a King Tong Yuan pan from his storage ring. Holding the King Tong Yuan pan in his hand, Xiao Zhan saw the image of a small island. His eyes widened in shock. An island? Could the primordial sword embryo be on that island? He thought to himself. As soon as he finished thinking that, the vast lake around him suddenly vanished. Xiao Zhan was confused and muttered, "What's going on?" The surface of the lake just disappeared. Then something even stranger happened. In all directions, several hundred zombie puppets also vanished at the same time. The whole thing happened so fast that Xiao Zhan was left frozen, completely stunned, unable to move. Xiao Zhan quickly regained his composure. He tilted his head and looked around, carefully sensing the surroundings. Gradually, his expression turned serious. He found himself surrounded by a vast forest, stretching endlessly in all directions with no visible end in sight. Xiao Zhan decided to walk straight ahead to find a way out. But no matter how far he went, he realized he was still deep in the forest, back at his starting point. Just as Xiao Zhan was trying to figure out how to break the strange loop of the forest, a voice suddenly reached his ears from behind. "Finally found you." Meow. The sound was soft, pleasant, and youthful, like a young girl's voice. Xiao Zhan stiffened, immediately turning his head to look. He spotted a black cat perched on a tree branch, several dozen meters away. When the black cat saw Xiao Zhan looking at it, it jumped down from the branch. As soon as its paws hit the ground, the cat transformed into a stunning young woman with long, slender legs. Noticing Xiao Zhan's wary expression, the black cat smirked, flashed a smile, and said, "You, outsider, don't worry, Meow. I'm the guardian of this forest. If you want to get out of here, you'll need my help." As Xiao Zhan looked at the black cat's alluring figure, his mind immediately wandered to wild and stimulating thoughts. He couldn't help but think, "Cat girl, I didn't expect to find something so untamed here in Tai Chi Ancient Star." Xiao Zhan stood there, stunned for a moment, then realized he had made a bit of a fool of himself. He quickly regained his composure, coughed lightly, and asked in a calm voice, "Cough, cough, where am I? How can I get out of here?" The black cat, hearing this, looked at Xiao Zhan with a surprised expression, then asked, "Meow, meow, meow, you don't know where you are?" Xiao Zhan shook his head. "No, I don't." The black cat moved closer to him, smiling as she said, "Well, it's a real miracle that you managed to get across that lake. Let me tell you then, you're on Huangshen Island. Do you know what Huangshen is? Ha ha, I bet you have no idea. Let me explain it to you. Thousands of millennia ago, when the Tai Chi Ancient Star was first born, 5 gods came into being: Longshen, Huangshen, Mingshen, Laishen, and Fengshen. From the moment they were born, they possessed the greatest powers of the Tai Chi Ancient Star. They were then worshipped as deities by all the intelligent beings. The island you're standing on now, along with the lake outside, belongs to these gods. The reason you were able to make it here is definitely because of the primordial sword embryo Mao." Xiao Zhan moved slightly, realizing that you must know quite a bit. The black cat pressed 2 grapefruits against Xiao Zhan's body, licking her lips and smiling at him. "I've lived on this island for a long time. Knowing a few secrets is nothing unusual. Let's go, I'll lead you out of this area. Just follow in my footsteps and you'll be able to escape. If not, you'll be trapped here forever, Mao." While giving instructions, the black cat grabbed Xiao Zhan's arm and pulled him along. Xiao Zhan followed closely behind, his face full of doubt as he asked, "What was Huangshen's purpose in creating this place?" The black cat leaped onto a rock and sat on it. "This is the burial ground of Huangshen. Even gods have their time when their lives come to an end." As she spoke, a look of pity crossed the black cat's face, and she let out a soft sigh. "Such a pity, Mio." Xiao Zhan, hearing this, asked with confusion, "I've heard that beneath Wu Jin Daze, a Longshen still exists, and the Tai Chi Ancient Star has been around for over 100,000 years. How can she still be alive today?" The black cat rolled her eyes. "You're overthinking it. The Longshen now is not the same as the original one. After the original Longshen died, its essence and power gathered together, eventually turning into a dragon egg, which then gave birth to a new life. The Longshen is nurtured by its family. Do you really think the Longshen now is the same as before? This is how the Longshen works, passing from one generation to the next." Xiao Zhan nodded thoughtfully and sighed. "So that's how it is." The two continued talking, and before they knew it, they had walked out of the forest. The black cat raised its paw and pointed toward a stretch of rocky plains thousands of miles away. Outsider, do you see that mountain? That is where Huang Shen's divine spirit was formed after his death. Xiao Zhan's eyes flickered at this, and he asked, the primordial sword embryo, is it there? The black cat nodded, giving Xiao Zhan a smile before saying, the primordial sword embryo is in the center of the forehead. If I were to describe it using your terms, it's the sword core inside the divine altar. Xiao Zhan suddenly lifted the black cat's chin with his hand, gently running his thumb across her lips. He looked directly into her eyes and smiled before asking, did you bring me here so I could obtain the primordial sword embryo? The black cat shrugged slightly, her cute feline face breaking into a smile as she replied, of course, that's my mission, but getting the primordial sword embryo isn't easy. There are 3 trials on the mountain. As she spoke, Black Cat wrapped her arms around Xiao Zhan, her fingers gliding lightly across his collarbone, her voice dripping with allure. The first trial, testing sword intent. If your sword intent isn't strong enough, there's no way to pass. The second trial, testing combat strength. You must defeat the Guardian. The third trial, at this point, Black Cat paused, her breath slightly unsteady. A soft escaped her lips before she let out a playful chuckle. He. As for the first 2 trials, you'll just have to find out for yourself. Her soft tail swayed gently, brushing against Xiao Zhan's knee as she spoke with a teasing undertone. Outsider, I've shared so much information with you. How do you plan to thank me? Under Black Cat's mischievous gaze, Xiao Zhan could easily tell what she was hinting at, but he deliberately played along. And how exactly do you want me to thank you? Black Cat blinked, a slight blush crossing her face, though her expression remained playful. I've been stuck in this place for too long, bored out of my mind. I need some entertainment. Seeing her half-serious, half-joking demeanor, Xiao Zhan chuckled. He reached out, gently ruffling Black Cat's hair, while his other hand lightly patted her shoulder as if offering comfort. A smirk played on his lips, his tone laced with amusement. I understand. Of course I understand. Hours later, after an intense exchange of blows with his mastery of all 36 forms and his refined combat instincts, Xiao Zhan had completely worn Black Cat out. She lay sprawled on the ground, her face a mix of exhaustion and reluctant satisfaction. Xiao Zhan adjusted his clothes, preparing to face the challenge ahead and seize the primordial sword embryo. The black cat on his face showed a satisfied expression. She licked her lips and with a wink, smiled at Xiao Zhan. Outsider, I wish you lots of luck on the road ahead. Xiao Zhan gave a slight nod, standing still for a moment. He took 3 deep breaths. At his feet, golden runes instantly appeared, and the ethereal steps of yin and yang were unleashed to their fullest extent. The space around him stacked on top of itself, and in the blink of an eye, Xiao Zhan appeared in front of a large square. In the center of the square stood a black stone tablet, about 5 meters high. Xiao Zhan, his face serious, gazed at the tablet and spoke in a deep voice. I'm here. At that moment, ripples in the space ahead of the black stone tablet suddenly shifted. 2 beautiful women, identical in every way, stepped out from within the tablet. The only difference was the color of their hair and the clothes they wore, one in white, the other in black. Both women had gloomy expressions, their faces blank and their eyes vacant. They emanated a chilling, deathly aura. They weren't alive. They were clearly some form of zombie puppet. Upon seeing Xiao Zhan, both women spoke at the same time. Welcome, outsider. This is the first trial. Xiao Zhan didn't respond. He calmly walked past them, heading straight for the stone tablet. As he walked, he silently thought to himself, the atmosphere is heavy and lifeless. It doesn't look like a place for the living. It's the kind of place for zombie puppets. At that moment, atop a giant ancient tree on the mountainside, an old man stood watching Xiao Zhan intently. Below the tree, a woman with a curvy, commanding figure stood, radiating a heroic aura. Every now and then, she glanced over at Xiao Zhan. The old man high above had red skin and a peculiar appearance. His nostrils were sunken and his beard and hair were white as snow. On his forehead, right in the center, there was an eye. As he focused on Xiao Zhan from afar, he turned to the woman below and, with some surprise in his tone, asked, has an outsider really come to Huangshan Island? Jiannu, do you think he can pass this first trial? Jiannu shook her head. Her gaze remained fixed on Xiao Zhan, and her voice, cool and distant, answered softly from beneath the tree, I don't know. The old man chuckled mockingly. When he fought on the lake, he didn't even use a sword. Whether he's a sword cultivator or not is still uncertain. I doubt he can even pass the first trial set by His Majesty Huangshan. Ha, he might even end up dead. Jiannu didn't answer. Her eyes quietly fixed on Xiao Zhan, and she calmly said, he's about to begin. Below the square, Xiao Zhan slowly raised his right hand and placed it on the stone tablet. A few gusts of wind swept by, and in the blink of an eye, Xiao Zhan could hear the sound of countless swords ringing in his ears. When he opened his eyes, Xiao Zhan realized he had been transported to another realm. This place was an unfamiliar void with sword intent swirling above his head, flickering like countless stars. Before Xiao Zhan could even understand what had happened, the massive sword intents above him, filled with fierce momentum and murderous intent, rushed towards him as if they wanted to shatter his demonic Chu body into 1,000 pieces. Facing the imminent danger of death, a blood-red sword seal flashed wildly on Xiao Zhan's forehead. The heaven-killing sword intent seemed to be enraged by these other sword intents. With a sharp whistle of wind, a gigantic blood-red sword shot out from Xiao Zhan's forehead. The heaven-killing sword intent surged with a mighty roar, clashing against the incoming sword intents. It was like an all-powerful ruler, overwhelming everything in its path. Wherever it flew, destruction followed. The two sides were completely unequal in number. The River of Time's sword intent, though vast and relentless, was nothing compared to Xiao Zhan's heaven-killing sword intent, which easily overshadowed it. The system then displayed a reminder. The heaven-killing sword intent of the host has successfully devoured the defeat sword intent. The level of sword intent has been enhanced. Level of sword intent undetermined, undetermined. Heaven-killing sword intent devours the Feng Liu sword intent, enhancing it to earth level. Heaven-killing sword intent devours the Hong Wang sword intent, enhancing it to earth level. Heaven-killing sword intent devours the Liu the sword intent, enhancing it to celestial level. Heaven-killing sword intent devours. Heaven-killing sword intent devours. Heaven-killing sword intent devours. The notification sound 9999 continuously echoed in Xiao Zhan's ears. Xiao Zhan, his eyes filled with surprise, lifted his head to look at the heaven-killing sword intent above. It seemed like a hungry beast, never satisfied, constantly advancing to devour the sword intent of the River of Time. Seeing this, Xiao Zhan was delighted. A smile couldn't help but spread across his face, and he exclaimed, "This isn't just passing a trial. This is a gift for me." Meanwhile, outside on the mountainside, the old man with red skin kept observing Xiao Zhan. Seeing that Xiao Zhan still had one hand on the stone tablet, standing motionless, the old man shook his head in disappointment. It's been an hour already, and he still hasn't come out. It looks like he really won't make it past the first trial after all. Jiannu stood below, slightly furrowing her brow, but her life force remained strong. It seemed she was still resisting the purification of the sword intent from the River of Time. Unfortunately, her sword intent wasn't strong enough. Otherwise, her consciousness would have already retreated from the stone tablet's space. The old man sighed deeply, his face filled with sadness, and nodded in agreement. It's a shame. It's rare for an outsider to come here. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiannu's pupils suddenly constricted. She looked into the distance, her face filled with shock, and exclaimed, "Look over there." Both of them turned to gaze at the distant scene. In the plaza, the black stone tablet in front of Xiao Zhan was clearly collapsing as if it were turning to fine dust, slowly fading away. Seeing this, the old man with red skin appeared utterly shocked. His mouth fell open as he gasped. How? How is this possible? How could the sword intent stone tablet crack? This is completely unnatural. Jiannu took a deep breath, her face also showing shock. There was only one explanation for this. The sword intent stone tablet exists because of the sword intent from the River of Time. As long as the River of Time's sword intent is immortal, the stone tablet remains immortal. But now, the sword intent stone tablet is being destroyed, which means this outsider must have eradicated the sword intent from the River of Time. I can only guess that his sword intent is incredibly powerful, possibly even surpassing divine grade. Could it be one of the legendary sword intents? At that moment on the square, Xiao Zhan slowly opened his eyes. He saw that the black stone tablet in front of him had turned into a pile of powder. Right between his brows, the blood-red sword mark that was originally a bright red was now even darker, giving off a feeling of returning to one's true self. If the heaven-killing sword intent had once been like a series of blades leaving their sheath, now it had returned to the sheath, hidden in the wind. Once it's drawn again, it will definitely shake the heavens. Xiao Zhan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The sword intent had broken through, reaching a new level. It had entered the realm of the Tao. How much effort had this saved me in terms of breakthroughs? Not bad at all. Just then, two women approached him with blank expressions as though they weren't bothered by Xiao Zhan's destruction of the sword intent stone tablet. They moved in perfect unison and stood before him, casually saying, "Congratulations, outsider. You can now proceed to the second trial. Follow this path up the mountainside, and you will face the second trial. Xiao Zhan ignored the two women and slightly turned his body to look at the stone stairs behind him, feeling a bit surprised. Without hesitation, the demonic Chu stepped onto the first stone stair. But as soon as Xiao Zhan placed his foot on the first step, he felt an intense pressure weighing down on him. Demonic Chu slightly curled his lips into a smile and thought to himself, interesting, there's even a pressure from heaven and earth. This is somewhat similar to the ascension challenge of Tai Su Holy Ground, but this level of pressure won't stop me. With that thought, Xiao Zhan suddenly accelerated, his body turning into a streak of dark lightning as he shot up the mountainside. Witnessing this, the old man was once again stunned, exclaiming, is this guy tired of living? How dare he run up this path? No sooner had the old man spoken than a bolt of lightning tore through the air, striking straight down from the sky onto Xiao Zhan. Boom! Boom! The sound of thunder echoed as the lightning struck Xiao Zhan directly. The old man had a look of smug satisfaction, laughing as expected. He got struck by divine thunder. Ha ha! He must be dead. Let's see if this brat keeps being so arrogant now. Jianu, standing below, gave a mocking smile. Ha ha! Wait until you see it for yourself. Even through the dust and smoke, Xiao Zhan's silhouette could still be seen. A little while later, the smoke and dust slowly cleared and Xiao Zhan's figure gradually became visible. Despite the lightning strike that had just hit, Xiao Zhan clearly wasn't harmed in the least, not even a tear in his sleeve. In fact, he seemed excited. He tilted his head back, shouting to the sky, come on, bring it on. Let the lightning strike even harder. As soon as Xiao Zhan finished speaking, boom, boom, thunder rumbled from above and bolts of lightning rained down him one after another. Not only did Xiao Zhan not try to dodge them, but he actually stood still, letting the lightning strike him directly. Demonic Chu had a look of enjoyment on his face. Seeing this, the old man couldn't help but be stunned. Is this outsider actually absorbing the lightning tribulation? A few hours later, Xiao Zhan finally reached the top of the mountain. He saw a massive ancient tree. At the base of the tree stood an old man, while a beautiful woman was seated beneath it. Beside her lay a massive blood-red sword radiating an incredibly intense aura. Xiao Zhan calmly surveyed the two of them. He gave a slight smile at the corner of his mouth and said, so, you two are the guardians of the second trial, huh?